children ran barefoot through the dusty paths, their laughter echoing across red earth. "Mama Wumi's cooking again," they shouted. "The wedding will taste like heaven." She smiled without looking up. The smile of a woman who knew her worth and the price she paid to keep it. Beneath the table, behind the stack of firewood, the yellow jerrycan hit like a guilty thought. She could feel it calling to her even now, its presence humming through the air like a trapped fly. Her neighbor, Mama Kem, leaned over the low fence that separated their compounds, envy sharp in her eyes. "Every day your pots sing and the whole village dances," she said, her tone honeyed but sour underneath. "What charm do you use, my sister? Is it from the river or from the gods themselves?" Wumi's hand froze for a heartbeat, the spoon trembling above the bubbling rice. Then she smiled again, the mask returning, perfect and calm. "There is no charm," she said softly. "I cook with love, and I pray over every grain." Mama Kem laughed. "Prayer cannot make rice taste like yours. Only spirits can do that." Wumi said nothing, only stirred. The wooden spoon scraped against the pot like a whisper of bones. 15 years ago, she had made her first bargain under a blood moon. 15 years of feeding the living with what belonged to the dead. And for 15 years, the ancestors had been silent until lately. Until the dreams began again, the smell of rot, the whispers at her bedside, the sensation of cold fingers brushing her throat as she slept. Still, she cooked. Success demanded silence. The sun climbed higher, casting gold on her dark skin. Her eyes, though, stayed shadowed, haunted by something unseen. By midday, customers gathered outside her compound. Traders, teachers, even the pastor's wife. Coins clinked, voices rose, praises filled the air. "Mama Wumi, give me your pepper soup, the one that healed my fever." "Mama Wumi, my husband says your stew has more power than medicine." She served them all with her glowing hands, her bracelets ringing like the laughter of gods. But as she worked, she noticed her daughter, Folak, 15 and curious, watching from the mango tree, eyes too sharp, too questioning. Later, as the sun fell, Folaki crept to her side. "Mama," she said softly, washing a pot, "where do you fetch your cooking water? Our well is the same as everyone's, but your food tastes different." Wumi's spoon slipped. The pot cracked. The sound shattered the silence of evening. "Water is water," she snapped. "Too fast, too loud. Stop asking foolish questions." But Folaki's gaze didn't waver. Beneath her calm, her heart thundered. She had seen the jerrycan. She had seen her mother's midnight journeys. And she would see again. That night, after the drums of the wedding rehearsal died down and the village sank into sleep, Folake lay awake, eyes open in the dark. She listened to her mother's breathing shift from steady to shallow, from rest to restless. The door creaked open. Barefoot, she followed. The moon hung low, heavy and white. Mama Wumi's figure glided ahead, tall, straight, wrapped in silence. Through narrow paths and whispering grasses, she walked toward the edge of the village, toward the place where no one went after dark, the mortuary. And in that single act of following, the law of the ancestors broke twice. Once, when Umi stole from the dead, and again when her daughter watched the theft in silence. The air grew cold. The night held its breath. The spirits sleeping beneath the earth began to stir. The path to the mortuary was narrow, hemmed by tall elephant grass whispering like restless tongues. The night air pressed heavy on Folake's chest as she crept after her mother, her bare feet soundless against the dust. Every few steps, the wind carried a strange scent, camphor, rust, and something older, like grief that had turned to smoke. Ahead of her, Mama Wumi moved with the precision of ritual. Her wrapper was tied high around her chest, her headscarf pale against the dark. In her hand swung the yellow jerry can, the one that had fed them for 15 years. Folake clutched her breath as they reached the mortuary gate, a crooked metal door that screamed when opened. Her mother hesitated. For a heartbeat, she looked like a child lost at the threshold of a forbidden shrine. Then she whispered, "Forgive me, ancestors. I borrow only your water, not your rest." The gate creaked open. Folake stayed hidden behind the tall weeds, her pulse drumming in her ears. The light from the kerosene lamp inside flickered weakly, painting her mother in shades of gold and shadow. A figure stepped forward. Soon the mortuary attendant. His face was thin, his eyes hollow from nights spent among the dead. He glanced around nervously before muttering, "You came again, Mama Wumi. The spirits grow restless." "And yet," she said, pressing folded naira into his palm, "they still let me cook." Sun sighed. "You are playing with graves." "I am feeding the living," she answered. He said nothing more. From the back room came the hiss of metal taps. Folake crept closer, her heart crawling into her throat. Through the cracked window, she saw her mother kneel by the mortuary basin, the one where the bodies were washed. She opened the tap. The sound of running water filled the silence. It was not clean water. It was thick, dark, shimmering like oil beneath the lamplight. Faces rippled on its surface pale, drowned faces, and voices whispered from it like breath against glass. Mama Wumi's hands trembled as she filled the jerry can. Every drop that splashed to the ground hissed, steaming like blood on hot iron. "Enough," Sun murmured, eyes wide. "They are watching." But she did not stop. Her eyes were distant, hollow, as if some deeper will guided her. When the jerry can brimmed, she sealed it tight, pressed more money into Sun's shaking hand, and turned to leave. Outside, the night held its breath. The moonlight struck the yellow container, and for a moment it seemed to glow from within, faint, pulsating, like a heart that should not beat. Folake's knees gave way. She fell behind the bush, biting her lip to keep from crying out. Her stomach twisted. Bile rose in her throat. She watched her mother balance the jerry can on her head and walk home through the silent paths, the water of the dead swaying above her like a crown of sin. When they reached their compound, Wumi hid the jerry can behind the kitchen, beneath the torn sack. Then she went inside, washed her hands 3 times, and knelt before her small altar, the one with a crucifix and a bowl of cowries. "I do it for the living," she whispered. "I do it for Folik." But the air around her thickened. The lamp flame flickered violently, bending sideways as though a wind passed through unseen bodies. A chill crawled across her back. In the silence, she heard a sound, the faint dripping of water from the jerry can. Each drop hit the ground like a heartbeat. Outside, Folaki watched from her mat, tears drying to salt. Her mother's voice trembled through the walls. "Forgive me, ancestors. Forgive me." The next morning, the first omen appeared. The cooking water she poured into her pot rippled though the fire beneath it was cold. When she stirred, the spoon stuck as though something held it from below. She frowned, murmured a prayer, and added more rice. From the pot rose a new smell, not palm oil, not tomato, but something old, sour, and faintly sweet, like the breath of decay. Flies gathered, though the air was clean. A single drop splashed onto her wrist, and the skin beneath it went numb. She stared at her hand, beautiful, trembling, alive yet hollow. "Just tired," she whispered. "Only tired." But the spirits had already begun their march. Across the distance, in his hut of herbs and bones, Baba Tunde woke from uneasy sleep. The wind carried the scent of death to him. He smiled in the dark, eyes glittering like coals. "So," he murmured, "the dead have remembered what belongs to them." And somewhere beneath the soil of Abioa, voices stirred, whispering her name. Wumi, Wumi, the cook who feeds the dead. Would you like me to move to task 3? The Feast of Retribution, where the spirits strike and the curse begins to manifest. At first light, the drums began. From the chief's compound, they rode across the village like distant thunder, summoning laughter, perfume, fine wrappers, and expectation. The guests arrived in waves, their joy untroubled. Only in Mama Wumi's kitchen did the mood turn heavy. She stood before the great iron pot, sweat running down her spine. Beside her, the yellow jerrycan waited, half hidden under sacks of rice. The ground around it felt colder than the rest of the yard. "Today decides everything," she whispered. One last time. When she lifted the container, the liquid inside sloshed thickly, almost sluggish. She poured it into the pot, expecting the familiar clarity. Instead, the water turned dark, the color of dried blood. It began to bubble, though the fire beneath had not yet been lit. Wumi's breath caught. The smell that rose was not palm oil or spice. It was a scent she knew from the mortuary, the sweet sour of washed corpses. "No," she hissed, backing away. "Not today." She threw in rice, pepper, salt, palm oil. The bubbling slowed. The smell shifted. For a moment she believed she had conquered it. She stirred harder, beads clinking on her wrists. When Folak entered the kitchen, drawn by the noise, her eyes widened. "Mama, why is the water moving like that?" "Go inside," Wumi snapped. "It's only bad water. I will fix it." But the surface of the rice rolled as if something beneath were turning, unseen hands stirring back. By noon the feast was served. Platters of jollof rice steamed under the canopy, pepper soup shimmered in bowls, and laughter filled the air. The chief himself raised a spoon, smiling. The first taste silenced him. His smile froze, then twisted. "What is this?" he said. "It tastes like the grave." He spat into the dust. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Guests exchanged glances, swallowed uneasily. A woman coughed, another gagged. Children began to cry. Across the yard, Folaki clutched her mother's arm. "Mama, stop serving them. It's only nerves," Wumi whispered. "It will pass." But it did not pass. By evening, 3 guests lay sick, shivering, eyes glassy. Before dawn, they were dead. Fear spread faster than the smell of her cooking. 5 deaths in one day, the market women whispered. And all after eating her food. She used charms, another said. She fed them spirits. The drums stopped. The chief's men forbade her from entering his compound again. Even the children avoided her door. That night, Wumi sat by the dying fire. Her hands trembled as she stared into the embers. The pot beside her was empty, but for the black residue clinging to its rim. She reached to clean it. The soot pulsed under her fingers like flesh. A wind rose, sudden and cold. The fire guttered. She heard it, then the whispering, 100 voices overlapping in the dark. "You washed us from the world. We remember the taste." Wumi stumbled back, knocking over the pot. It struck the earth with a dull thud. When it landed, the spilled soot formed the outline of a human body. She fell to her knees, shaking. "Forgive me," she whispered to the shadows. "I only wanted to feed the living." The shadows answered, rustling through the mango leaves. "The living forget, the dead do not." In another part of the village, Baba Tunde knelt before his shrine of bones and herbs. He drew circles in ash, chanting the names of the forgotten. Each name fed the air with power. "Come," he murmured. "Come and take what is owed." The lamps flickered. The air thickened. In his mind's eye, he saw them, the restless ones rising from the places where they had been buried, their mouths dripping water that was not water, their eyes turned toward Mama Wumi's house. He smiled, a small, satisfied smile. "Now cook," he said to the night. "Let them taste you." At the edge of the village, Folake woke to a sound like rain, though the sky was clear. Outside, thin trails of water crept across the ground, flowing toward her mother's room. Each droplet carried a faint reflection, a hand, a face, an open mouth. The spirits were coming home. The night came heavy with silence. No crickets, no drums, not even wind. Only the dry crackle of old firewood in the corner of the compound and the slow breathing of fear. Folaki sat outside their hut, her knees pulled to her chest, watching her mother's shadow sway across the wall. Inside, Mama Wumi paced before her altar. Her beads clattered like nervous teeth. The air smelled of cold ash and sweat. Every few breaths, she whispered names, not prayers, but pleas. Adibayu, forgive me. Bisola, forgive me. Ancestors, forgive me. Her voice trembled. Her hands, once proud and precise, now shook like dry leaves. Folake couldn't bear it any longer. She stepped inside. "Mama." Wumi turned, startled. The oil lamp flared, throwing hard light on her face, hollow eyes, lips bitten raw, the beauty of 15 years ago buried beneath guilt. "What are you doing awake?" she snapped. Go to sleep. I can't. The house is full of voices. Voices? Wumi froze. They whisper your name. The older woman's breath caught. For a long moment, neither moved. The lamp hissed. Shadows danced on the walls like black tongues. Mama, Folake whispered, I know about the water. The words fell between them like a curse. The pot in Wumi's hand slipped, shattering against the floor. The sound was sharp enough to wake the dead. She stood trembling, shards glittering around her bare feet. What did you say? The water from the mortuary, Folake said, her voice shaking but steady. I followed you. I saw you fill the jerry can. A sound rose from Wumi's throat, not a scream, not a sob, but something raw and ancient. She staggered to the stool, clutching her chest. You don't understand, my child. You don't know what hunger does to a woman. Then help me understand, Folake pleaded. Tell me why you feed us with death. Wumi looked at her daughter, the face of her youth reflected back at her, and broke. Tears ran down her cheeks in silence, before words came heavy as stones. It was 15 years ago, she began. You were small, and your father had gone to Lagos to find work. He never came back. We had nothing, no food, no roof that didn't leak. One night I went to the mortuary. I wanted to beg Sun, the attendant, for the leftover oil they used for embalming. It burned longer than firewood. He told me of a secret, the water of transition. He said those who use it to cook will never lack customers, because the spirits bless those meals to keep their names alive among the living. I was desperate. I took it. The next day, my food tasted different. People praised it. They paid me. We survived. But every gift from the dead comes with debt. They began to visit me in dreams. I ignored them. I told myself I was doing good, that the dead wouldn't mind if the living prospered from their silence. She laughed once, brittle. Now their silence is broken. The air grew colder. The lamp flickered, though no wind blew. Folake stepped closer, eyes wide with both fear and pity. Mama, we can still fix this. Return the water? Confess to the elders? Confess? Wumi's voice cracked. They would burn me alive. From outside came the soft crunch of footsteps. A shadow moved beyond the doorway, and then another, Folake skin prickled. She turned. A man stood there, tall, thin, his face streaked with white chalk, Baba Tunde. No need for confession, he said. The ancestors already know. He carried a small clay pot, its lid sealed with palm leaves. The air around it shimmered, heavy with something unseen. What do you want, Baba? Wumi whispered. Balance, he said simply. You took from the dead. Tonight they dine with you. He set the clay pot down in the center of the room. It burst open without touch, releasing a thick white smoke that smelled of grave soil and rain. In the swirling haze, faces began to form half-seen, murmuring, eyes wet and shining. Folake screamed. Wumi sank to her knees. Please, she begged. They didn't know. Only I am guilty. The smoke twisted toward her like hands reaching, voices layered over one another, male and female, young and old. You fed us to the living. You sowed our rest. Now we feed on your peace. Baba Tunde began to chant, but the words trembled. His control faltered. The spirits ignored him, circling Umi instead. Folake grabbed her mother's shoulders, shaking her. Mama, tell them the truth. Give it back. How? Umi cried. It's inside them now, inside all who ever ate my food. The lamp shattered. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the glowing eyes of the spirits remained, flickering like embers. Then, amid the whispers, one voice rose soft, deep.